Hey, so welcome everybody. My name is Vanessa Wideski, and I'm a facilitator, speaker, and trainer. And today I'm here with my mentor and my friend, business researcher Tom Campbell.
Hi,
How are you
Vanessa.
doing today? Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. So, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for making the time to talk with me. So, for those who are new to Tom's work, Tom has created a unified field theory, a theory of everything that explains why it exists, what our purpose is here, and who we are at a fundamental level. Tom, not only have you described a model as such, but you've done so from a scientific approach where you've had decades of research and experimentation. This has all been through your own experience. What fascinates me is that you've collected all this data and you put it together based on, again, your own personal evidence that you've collected. Yet you bring it to people and you tell them, don't believe any of it.
hmm
And can you talk a little bit about why you tell people not to believe any of it?
Well, I called the books My Big Toe, and it wasn't because I'm so enamored of it. And this is my big toe.
Right.
Everybody notice it's mine. It's not that way. It's mine because it's based on my experience. And really, what My Big Toe is all about is to give people kind of a go-by or a model in which they can create their own big toe. So the
Mm.
problem is that if you believe what anyone tells you, me included,
Yeah.
then you have this choice to either believe it or not. It's not your experience. If it's not your experience, then do you believe it or do you not believe it, or do you put it aside and maybe you'll believe it later or maybe not, but you can't really process the information because you have no experience in which to give it context, in which to give it meaning.
Right.
So another thing I say is, if it's not your experience, it's not your truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same sort of thing said in a different way. So I tell people, don't believe what I tell you, because belief isn't going to help you grow up. It's not about how many facts you can memorize, how much knowledge you can stuff in your head.
Mm.
That's nice, but that's not what makes you grow up. What makes you evolve yourself, what makes you grow, is for you to gather that understanding yourself through your own experience. It has to be experiential, or it's just intellectual. So
Mm-hmm.
you can have people who have been, say, in the spiritual movement or in the spiritual places, but
Yeah.
it's all intellectual. They can talk about it,
Yeah.
and they can talk about it very well.
Yeah.
They know all the right words, they know the concepts, they know the theory,
Yeah.
but they don't actually walk the talk.
Right.
They have egos. They have, it's about them. Things have to be their way. They have that sort of thing, which shows you that they're not really very well grown up, because growing up means getting less self-centered.
Yeah.
That's what we call maturity. Children are basically self-centered. When
Mm-hmm.
you're first born and very small, it kind of exists at the center of your own universe.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you in this scary outside world, but it's all about you. And if you don't get what you need, then you holler and somebody will come give you what you need, hopefully.
Yeah.
But as we mature, maturity is just a matter of letting go of that self-centeredness and becoming other-centered,
Mm-hmm.
becoming caring, empathetic, where it's not just about you, it's about others. It's what can I give, not what can I get.
Yeah.
It's, is there anything I can do to help this person? Not, how can I use this person? You see,
Right.
for my own benefit. It's just a different way of looking at the world. And that's what we call maturity.
Yeah.
And you don't get that by reading about it.
Mm.
You don't get that intellectually. You
Mm-hmm.
can have all the knowledge in the world, but still not be very grown up, still have a lot of self-centeredness, a lot of ego, a lot of that junk that you carry around, which means a lot of fear.
Yeah.
You only reason you have the ego is because you have the fear. Well, when you're very young, that fear is that you're very small in a very big world, and you can't control anything, and
Yeah.
you're totally dependent on others. So that's kind of the basic fear then,
Right.
that you need to be taken care of by others, and you can't do any of it on your own.
Yeah.
Well, as you grow up, you get less dependent,
Hmm.
and you become more of an adult that takes care of yourself. But
Hmm.
still, most people retain a great deal of their self-centeredness. It is all about them. And partly that's because our culture feeds that. Our culture kind of tells us we need to be that way.
Hmm.
Our culture says, take care of number one. If you don't take care of number one, nobody else will. Take care of yourself. And, we're encouraged to be self-focused.
Yeah, we're
Self,
conditioned to be that way. Since
yeah,
we come in here looking outside of ourselves for validation, for approval. Everything is outside of ourselves. Everything is external. We go to our parents to make us feel good. And so now we've been programmed to believe that in order to feel good about ourselves, we have to seek it outside of ourselves.
true. See, that's when it's about self. I need to feel good. I need to go out and get things to make me feel good.
Right.
It's all I-centered. It's
Mhm.
me-centered. My good feelings, my sense of worth, my sense of value, all depends on how other people look at me and how they see me. And
Right.
but that's all mine, my. It's all about you. It's
And
not about what can I do for somebody else.
then,
It's not about that. It's about my good feelings.
yeah, and that
So
perpetuates the fear. And then we have these fears of what other people might think of us, and fear of rejection,
right,
and because we're always looking outside of ourselves, we want things from other people. So then what I hear you saying though is we have to stop doing that, stop making it all about ourselves, get out of our own way, and instead care about others, but we can't do it at the intellectual level. You have to actually be that way. But that's such a difficult thing to do because who we really are at our core is this such selfish being. So how do we break free of that and then transform into a loving, caring being that makes it about others?
well, we have to first. The key idea is we have to want to.
Yeah.
We have to want to change. We have to want to grow up. We have to want to lower our entropy or increase the quality of our consciousness. We have to want to become love.
Hmm.
We, if you don't, if you're happy the way you are, or if you're just so in a rut that you can't get out of the way you are, then you're kind of stuck there. So first you have to get to the point that you say, I want to change. I want to be different. Now, why would you want to be different? Well, it's because when you are self-centered, and world and life is primarily about you, with you at the center of it, you tend to be unhappy. You
Hmm.
tend to be full of stress. You tend to be struggling all the time because you're always trying to get all the stuff you need from other people.
Right.
Yes, you need to be validated. Somebody needs to tell you that you're okay.
Hmm.
You need to be loved and cared for. You need
Right.
this, you need that. You
Yeah.
need all these things. And generally you don't get them.
No, we don't.
You just don't get them because everybody else out there is just like you. It's
Yeah.
all about them. They're
Hmm.
all sitting around and saying, well, I need people to do this for me. So just
Yeah.
imagine a room full of people and they're all sitting there saying, I need somebody to come over and be nice to me. I need other people to do this and other people to do that for
Hmm.
me, you
Hmm.
see, but they're all sitting in a room feeling the same way.
Yeah.
So generally nobody gets that,
Hmm.
because it's not until somebody else says, well, it's not about me. Let me get up and just tell some of these people sitting around here that I think they're really nice people and I'm glad to be here with them and so on,
Hmm.
until somebody decides that it's about everybody's sitting around waiting for the world to deliver them good feelings, you
Right.
know, things
Yeah.
that make them things that make them feel good.
Hmm.
So if you are self-centered, and if you're in an environment where people are mostly self-centered, which is just the normal environment, that's the way most of us are,
Yeah.
then you tend to be frustrated. You
Yeah.
tend to be unhappy because when other people interact with you, they're interacting in the sense of what you can do for them.
Hmm.
How can you make them feel good? That's the way they're interacting with you. So if you say something like, well, I had this terrible experience and I really feel down today, they're thinking, should I care?
Mm.
Really? Do I want to know all about this?
Hmm.
You see?
Or they're like, oh, I had a terrible experience too. Let me tell you all about me.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't get that warm feeling. You don't get that, oh, poor baby, tell me about your experience. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Instead of that, what you get is, yeah, well, yeah, that's nice, but let me tell you about mine. Or,
Yeah,
they roll their eyes and say, well, I really got to get going now. I'm really not that interested in your stuff because it's the only thing that interests me is my stuff. You know?
yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
that's just the way it is in a world full of self-centered people, is
Right.
that everybody feels empty. Everybody feels that they're not getting the things they need,
Hmm.
and they're unhappy.
And because they can't get the things they need outside of themselves, it doesn't exist out there, right?
Right, right.
So,
That's not where it needs to come from. It needs to come from inside. So
mm,
the point is, why would somebody say, well, I'd like to change? Well, the reason for that is because you're unhappy. You're miserable. Your life isn't going well. Things seem, you're always struggling. That's
right.
kind of the nature of the average person. They're always struggling. And if they think, if I could just get past this point, if I could just make my significant other see, my way, if I could just get my children to pay attention, if I could
Yeah,
just do, and you have all these, if I could just, then everything would be wonderful if we could just get past that point. So
yeah,
it's a constant struggle to get past that point, because as soon as you do, if you do ever get past that point, well, now there's another point,
is another
and
thing.
then there's another one, and there's another one, and you find out you never actually run out of those. So you are always going to be struggling and not happy. The only way to find happiness is from the inside out, not from the outside in. And the first thing to do about that is you do have to like yourself. You do have to think you're okay. If you have a lot of negative attitudes towards yourself, like I'm just nobody, I don't know a whole lot. I'm not all that smart. I'm not all that good looking. I'm not all that rich. I don't, I'm not all that well educated. You can think of all the things about you that just aren't all that good,
Yeah,
and you come to a conclusion that I'm really not very much. And if you have this inadequacy thing, or being insecure, or you know you have trouble finding girlfriends or boyfriends, or making good
right.
friends. All your friends seem to just be users,
Mm.
and you don't think users just like I am. You think all my friends are users, not like me. I'm a
Yeah,
really good, wonderful person. All my
yeah.
friends are users.
Or me. Yeah.
Yeah, poor me. So you get into that, and you have to let all that go and say, I don't want to live that way. I really want to be happy. So to
Mm.
start off, you do have to like yourself. If you
Hmm.
don't like yourself, you're not going to be happy with anything you do, because anything you do, you will find the fault in it. You will
Yeah.
find the problem with it.
Right.
If your hair's curly, it looks terrible. It needs to be straight. If your hair's straight, it looks terrible. It needs to be curly. You will find fault
Yeah.
in however you are, and whatever you do, it isn't good enough.
Right. Never
It's
enough. Never good enough. Yeah.
never good enough. You're always looking for a way that you can do something such that other people
Mm.
like you.
Right. So
See?
it's never, yeah, it's always looking for the validation from others.
Yes. Yeah, you have to like yourself. So if you don't like yourself, then that's the place you start. You just have to say, well, who am I? Who
Hmm.
is this self? And
Hmm.
you have to just look at yourself and say, all right, this is me.
Yeah.
And take the inventory, go through it. Who am I? Do
Yeah.
some meditations on that. You may spend a couple of months just meditating on who and what am I? What
Mm.
do I really like? What do I really want? And why do I want it?
Yeah.
And, what's my personality? Who am I? And then just accept that this is me, whatever comes out. And if you say, well, who I really am, I'm just a plain, frightened little girl who, isn't sure of anything and is hoping that everything will work out all right. And if that's what you come up with, then you say, that's me.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the way I am. All
Right.
right. I own it. I'm going to try to just accept myself. See, I'm insecure because I don't think that I am the way I need to be. But once you just accept yourself and say, okay, I accept that I am that way, now there's nothing really to be insecure about. You've accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
So the fear is gone now. Before there was a fear of I'm not good enough. But once you accept yourself as you are, then the fear no longer has any teeth because you've accepted that. Okay, I don't have to be afraid that I'm, inadequate. I'm inadequate and that's all right. I accept my inadequacy and I'll work with it. I'll learn, I'll grow. So you
Yeah.
accept that, and now you're not always trying to put on an image,
Right.
always trying to cover up that inadequacy,
Yeah.
always trying to be the life of the party because really you feel very inadequate.
Yeah.
And if you weren't the life of the party, you'd be some little, shrinking violet off on the sideline and nobody would talk to you.
Nobody
So
would.
you get out there and you push yourself to do this and do that. Well, all that's image. That's not really you,
Yeah.
you see?
So
So,
I have a question, Tom. I have a
okay.
big question. Okay. So I definitely myself have identified with that scared little girl and I'm so shitty and all this stuff. Like that has been who I found was inside when I did all this meditating and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so that's who I am. Great. Like now I get to deal with that and been dealing with it. But then a few months ago, I went to a Vipassana meditation. This is my 5th time going to this meditation where it's silence, 10 days of silence. This particular one was only 3 days. But in that meditation, and this was right after I got out of my toxic relationship. So I'm like, here, patient, like presence of love. And I tuned into that and I was like, wow, this is who I really am. And so can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because that's so different. Like, which one is it?
Well, when you got to the point that, and a lot of what you said I missed because the audio was really strange there, but that's all right. I got it anyway.
So quick edit, my sound was cutting in and out during my interview with Tom because it's snowing here in Vancouver and the connection wasn't as strong. And yes, I need a new mic. I get that. It will come. But the edit that I wanted to add was what I was sharing with Tom is that I went to a Vipassana meditation, and in that meditation, I showed up there feeling very broken and feeling like I had hit rock bottom. And I really opened up to asking, who am I? Who am I? And what is my truth? And what I felt was this overwhelming love and this powerful presence. And so I was asking Tom, that feels very different than the scared little girl, this character, this ego. So, what is up with that duality? That was the question that I asked him.
When you got to that point where you let all that other stuff go, that's the image I'm talking about. When you finally let all those images go and find out just who are you at the very core, what you find out is that you're a lovely person. It's all about love. It's all about caring. That you are a person, you have value just because you exist. You don't have to do anything in particular. It's not about the doing. It's about the being. And at that being, when you let go of the doing and let go of the image, that being is beautiful.
Yeah.
That being is a lovely person. And everybody will find that beautiful person inside.
Right.
That's who they are. But first you got to strip off all this stuff. And that's really what I mean by acceptance. When you let go of all of the image and stuff that's, all your acting, all your neediness, you let go of the ego, what's left at the core is going to be a beautiful human being. All the stuff that's negative is the stuff we pile up there. It's the stuff we put on. So this idea of being yourself, of being authentic, really turns out after a bit, after you start peeling this stuff off, really turns out to be a very pleasant place to be. When you're authentic, you're okay.
Yeah.
Because you've accepted that you are the way you are. You let go of all the stuff. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be beautiful. I want to be rich. I want to have friends. I want everybody to love me. I want all of this. Just let all that go. That's I wants. Just say, well, who am I? Get rid of all the I wants. And you'll find I'm just a person that wants to connect. I care about other people. And if you focus on the I care about other people instead of the I want other people to care about me, you see,
Yeah.
now
Huge difference.
that's the core you. See, the core you is what you have to give. The core you isn't the neediness. That's your ego. That's the wants. I want, I need. That's all the I stuff. That's the self-centered stuff. So you get down to the very core of who are you. And if you get it out of the social context, which is what happens when you go into 10 days of meditation, the social context just drops away. The image just drops away.
Right.
I mean, it's there in the beginning, but the longer you sit there and don't say anything, the more authentic you become.
Yeah.
The more just you are, and the more all the superficial stuff slides away. And then when you get to that point, you find that you are a human being. You have capacities and you have capabilities to love and to give and to be, parts of some, of bigger things, to grow, to become. You've got all this capacity. And just stop there and say, all right, that's me. I got the capacity. Don't say, yeah, I got all this capacity, but I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not, don't go start listing all the things you're not.
No.
You just stop right there and say, I am a person and I have the capability to love, to care, and to be whole. I have that potential. All right. That's just you at the very foundation. That's you being authentic. That's just who you are. All the rest of this stuff is overlaid. It's your fear. It's your ego. It's the self-centeredness. It's the beliefs. Okay. That's what you're trying to offload. You see, so when you do those 10 days, what you're really doing is finding the authentic you.
Yeah.
And the problem is you walk out of that and 10 days after you're done the 10 days, everything's back to the way it was.
Well, and that's what normally would happen, because like I said, this was just one. And with this one, I continued on the meditation practice. And so every morning now it's anchoring into that space of feeling whole and complete and being love, and then radiating that, carrying that out into the daily activities of my life. There is a question that's coming up in this. Okay, so you're talking about when you kind of strip off all these fears, central overlay, and the needs, then at the core, what you find is that you are a loving human being, a loving person. And it's funny that you say that, because a person or a human being is just the avatar, right? So
well, that's what you find, that you're this loving human being. Now, I'm doing this from the context, the way most people think about it. Most people don't think about themselves as an avatar. So I'm talking in the context that average person will be able to follow what it is I'm saying and be able to understand it. But what you find, what you get to when you get to that bottom level is, I have a lot to give.
Yeah.
That's what you hit, that fundamental bottom level is you realize I have a lot to give. And now all you need to do is start giving it.
Yeah.
Right. Start giving it. You see, once you get to that point where it's no longer I'm too small, I'm too big, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too dumb, I'm too whatever, I'm too poor, it's like, you have a lot to give just because you're you, because you have that capacity to love, as everybody does. And when you get to that core point, now how are you going to give it? Well, you start thinking about what you can do for other people. How can you be a service? And it's not about you anymore. It's not always about, well, what do these people think of me? Well, you don't care what they think of you. You're thinking of, what can I do to them? How can I be helpful? Where can I, whatever. Now, when you start giving and caring about others, then you will find that the relationship that you want, the respect that you want from other people just starts to evolve all by itself. It just comes. Because now you're capable of making good choices.
Right. Yeah.
You see, before you're not making good choices because you're making choices based on your fear, your ego, your wants, your needs. All your choices are based on that stuff, which is the trouble stuff. So once you're just giving it away, and you're trying to be helpful to people, and you feel good about yourself because you are a person that has a lot to give.
Mm-hmm.
And every person should feel that way. That's
Yeah.
what we are at the core. It's all this fear and junk that makes us confused and unhappy and miserable. So
Mm-hmm.
there you get to that core, and you start to just be caring about others. Well, that puts you in a mind space where you start making choices based on caring, based on seeing things as they are. And now your choices start to be good choices. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of being the very worst picker of men ever, because you just always see the men that turn out to be bad guys, and
Yeah.
they're the ones that make your heart go pitter pat, pitter pat. And the ones that might be the good guys, they just leave you cold, like, nah, they don't ring my bell at all.
Boring. I don't like
Yeah,
that.
boring, you see. And all of that's driven by, that's just poor choice. It's all driven by fears and needs and wants.
Right.
And beliefs. You have this belief that, the way thing is, Prince Charming rides on his big white horse. He scoops you up and he runs off to the castle, and, you're a Disney princess from then on,
Right.
and you have these ideas, and you want those ideas enough that you begin to fantasize them, and you start wrapping those ideas around the world that you see. Well, the world that you see out there is mostly very self-centered. But you start wrapping these fantasies around that outside world, and suddenly this guy, oh, he's a great guy, and yeah, he's just the Prince Charming, and he's this, and there's the castle, and you start seeing and living all that stuff, but it's all because you want it so much.
Right.
You just interpret it to be the way you want it.
Totally.
But you can only do that so long. It doesn't take that long before, reality seeps in and everything kind of crashes, and you get to see it the way it really is rather than the way you wanted it to be.
Right.
So that's, you have to start with liking yourself, because, like we said, that's like step one. If you say, yeah, I'm just, I'm just not much. Well, you're not going to build from that. As long as that's at your core, you're not going to feel very well.
Yeah.
You're going to start making up images that cover that up.
Right. Yeah.
You'll start doing things to cover up your inadequacies. So got to let that go. And the place to start is say, okay, I'm inadequate. So what? I accept that. What else is in there? And you just keep going until you get to the bottom. And at the bottom, there's a person with a lot to give. There's a person with a lot of love.
Okay, so it's that, again, you're saying person, and I know you're doing it so that the average person on the street.
Yeah, there's a consciousness in there, right? There's an awareness in there.
Yeah. And that's who we really are at our core, is that conscious being, that awareness. That
awareness, that's what we are. Yeah, I say you're a person because most people see themselves as a person that the consciousness is somehow inside their head, and they identify with their bodies. So if I say it any other way, people won't understand what I'm talking about. But yes, you are right. I'm talking about consciousness, your awareness, your sense of who you are and what you are, not the physical body that you've got.
Yeah. Okay. Most people that will watch this are aware of the saying that I'm not a human being having a physical experience. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So can we talk
absolutely.
a little bit about that spiritual being or that consciousness? Because that is, if that's who we really are, then it's important to wake up to who we really are, and to identify with that rather than to identify with all our fears. That's not who we really are.
Yeah. And the key here, Vanessa, is it takes courage to do that. Because you see, if you're a frightened person and you say, well, okay, I get that. Down at my core, I have a lot to give. But if I give it, will anybody accept it? Will anybody want it? You see, well, that's that negativity coming back around. You see, it's that same belief, it's that same fear, it's all that stuff coming back around. And if you start that way and say, okay, I got all this to give, but if I go out there and say, all right, I'm giving to this, I'm going to give to that, and pretty soon you look around and you say, well, maybe I'm just being used here. I'm not getting anything back. I'm giving and giving and giving, and nothing seems to come back. I'm just, I'm being used. Now you're miserable again. Oh yeah, people are just using me. and then you feel self-pity and you go back through the whole thing and you crash again. Well, the point is, you don't give because you expect something to come back. That's not the point. If you're giving because you want to get back, that's manipulation. That's okay. I got this givingness in me, but what really I want is for people to come and give me this and give me that and like me and validate me. That's what I really want. And now it's just another game. Okay, I'll pretend to be giving, and then other people will like me. Well, it's just another game, and that won't work out. And what you'll eventually see is people will just use you, because that's how you will interpret it. When you give, you have to give and just let go. It's just a gift. It's not a gift that's going to make anybody else do anything in particular. You see, you can't give it with expectations. That expectation is just an ego. It's a belief. That's what you want. You're back to I want, I need. You see, so you can trick yourselves very easily in this process to think that you're doing the right thing, and all you're doing is really returning right back to the fear that you had. You haven't gotten rid of the fear at all. You've done a mind game. It's all been intellectual. So intellectually, you say, okay, I'm love, and I'm going to give, and I'm going to be this nice person. And if that's an intellectual thought, and then you go out, try to do it, now you're acting that way. You're acting giving, but it's not the same as being it. When you be
it, that's where you actually can change at that fundamental.
Yes, you have to be it. And the being it takes courage, because there's that part of you that's fearful that says, yeah, but if you be like that, people are just going to walk all over you. They're just going to use you. They're going to take advantage of you. And, you'll have that fearful part will be trying to, explain to you why that's not a good idea, why you need to get back into that image and make sure that, you take care of yourself and nobody's going to hurt you. And, you get into that mode. So you have to become love, but you have to become love in a sense that you give it because somebody needs it. Okay. Not necessarily because somebody wants it. See, if you're playing in a game of a bunch of people and they all want stuff, now it's players playing with other players. Everybody's trying to get everybody else to give them what they want. That's a game where everybody loses. But if you see somebody, and not somebody that says, oh, I want this and I want that, and you say, well, I'm just a giver, so I'm gonna give them all what they want. That's the wrong way to go about it. That's not what I mean when I say you have to start giving. I don't mean that. It's not that you go now play to everybody else's ego. So now your job is to help puff up other people's egos. Now that isn't it. That doesn't get you where you need to go.
No.
You need to give to those places where you feel you can really be helpful. And that is when somebody is stuck somewhere, or somebody just needs a helping hand. Somebody just could use a kind word. Well, you just do that, and you just give them that without any thought of getting anything back. You may not get anything nice back at all. You may even get something nasty back. Well, it's none of your business. You may get that, but that's okay. You just try that. But it's not like you're trying to fix someone. Oh, I'm going to be the fix-it girl now. I'm going to be nice to everybody, and I'm going to fix all their problems. And no, that doesn't work. That just gets you back into the same mess from a different approach. So you just have to help people. Now, if you see people who are very self-centered and very needy, and it's all about them, then feeding that ego is not helping them.
No.
That's not being good to them. You see, now you're an enabler. You're just, helping them play their own charade, their own game. And that's not helpful at all. So it's not, when I say be helpful, be caring, it's not that you go out and give people what they want, because mostly people will use you. But you give to people who really need it and really can benefit from it. And it might just be a kind word. It might just be a smile. It might be helping, your neighbor do something because she's particularly in a bind. It's just going out of your way to help people, not help people puff up their egos, but help people who really could use some help. So
And it's
that's why your perspective changes and you start making better choices. You start seeing the difference between people who are just puffing up their egos and you leave them alone.
yeah.
And you see people who are really genuine, who you can connect with. And it
Mm,
doesn't mean you run around and help 100 people. You're being helpful may only be 1 or 2 or 3 people. Other people, it's hard to be helpful to some people. No matter how you try to be nice to them, they'll find a way to, what, feed their egos with whatever it is you're doing. They'll
yeah.
find a way to be users.
Yeah. I don't tend
So,
to come across people like that very often. I'm pretty much surrounded by incredible people. I lucked out, except for my significant others. I always seem to be, they all come down on me in that realm. But friends and the other people like you and, the MBT community, they're all wonderful, loving people who, yeah, some of us, obviously, most of us here get it at the intellectual, but we're trying to get at the level, right? And we are authentic in that sense. And can you hear me okay? Tom, it says my speaker is not working properly.
no, it wasn't for the last minute and a half. Your voice was not understandable. It just was all, I don't know,
Garbled?
garbled up. Yes. And that's been happening on and off through the whole talk. It kind of comes and goes, but it's about 90% right. And it's about 10% garbled. So it's not.
That's probably what I'm saying. 90% good, 10% garbage. So I get to edit those pieces. Thank you, LCS, for pointing them out for me. To edit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to look at that piece about our fundamental nature, kind of, I call it coming home to yourself and being in that space of having that capacity to really give and to love. How does one get there, or how do you know that to be true? How do you know that to be true? How do you know that that's who you really are?
Well, finding out who you are is a path of discovery. You just find that out, and I guess it takes a long time. It's a long process. So you find out who you are, and that gets you part of the way. And then you find out a little more about who you are, and a little bit more. See, the more you are authentic, the easier it is to see authenticity or the lack thereof in other people. When you are out hustling an image like everybody else, then it's hard to tell image from reality because you live in an image space. But when
Right.
you really are authentic, it becomes pretty obvious when other people are not authentic and when they're just, their ego's just flapping and their fear and their beliefs and all of that. And you just kind of let that be. I mean, you're polite and you smile and you nod your head appropriate times, but you don't really engage in that because that's not useful. You engage in ways that are meaningful. And even if you have somebody and they're telling you about their image, you might say something to them that just would be something simple that would kind of hit them in a way that would help them relook at what it is they're doing. So you can still be straightforward and honest. It's not that when you find somebody's tied up in their image, you need to leave them alone. You can still be real and still be helpful to them, but not by engaging with their image. You have to engage them at a more real space, and you become better and better at being able to access that real space. Because when I say that people are wound up in their egos, that's true, but it's only a percentage. Like somebody's maybe 80% wound up in their ego and 20% they're real. It's not like you're one or the other. It's like you're either totally fake or you're totally real.
Yeah.
You are a big mixture of all sorts of things. You've got so much of you that's love and so much of you that's ego and so much of you that's fear and belief. And you have all these things going around inside you all the time. And that's, most everybody. We're like that, so we've got all this going on. Well, we need to take that love piece and find it, make it our core, and
Yeah.
then work out of that. So it's not that we're going to become 100% love and 0% fear. Well, maybe one day we will, but that's a long path to work your way down. Right now we just want to find our core make that core a good, positive thing, and then have the courage to live it and to be it, and to not get pulled into other people's ego wars, ego comments, you know. So when somebody says something that's maybe a little rude to you, instead of, oh, how could they say that? Da, 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 and you get upset and you get angry about it, you just realize that it's really not about you. It's about them.
Yeah.
The fact that they said that tells you a lot about them, but
Right.
doesn't really mean anything about you. So
Yeah.
once you realize that, then you don't get upset. And then you can deal with it in a way that is maybe helpful to that person, rather than a way that just throws more gasoline on that fire that's already burning.
Yeah, and sometimes the thing that's helpful is to walk away from that person and not engage with them.
Yeah. Well,
And
particularly if you're feeling a little, you know, a little ego coming up, you know, if you're getting defensive, then maybe the best thing's to walk away. But if you don't feel any of that ego or any of that defensiveness, then you can continue that conversation just in a perfect, normal, even voice. You're not upset or whatever, you
right.
know, and that usually startles the person on the other side, because they're expecting, you know, to get that. I mean, the whole reason they gave you that comment was just to twist
Get a
your tail a little bit, to get a reaction from you, you know. And when they don't get it, then it makes them stop and pause a little bit,
Yeah.
particularly then when you're nice to them and say, well, I can see you must be feeling kind of bad. How things been going for you, you know? And if they say, why do you say that? And you say, well, you seem a little uptight. You seem a little snappy here. So, you know, that makes me think that maybe you've had a hard day today. And
Yeah.
suddenly, you know, you've changed their whole viewpoint changes about you. Instead of putting you down to make themselves feel better, suddenly you're speaking truth to them, not engaging in a you know, in a kind of a slap fest of ego. You know, you're not doing this ego war stuff with them. You've actually told them something that's significant, that's true. See,
Yeah.
so you can turn things around like that. But the point is, you have to be it.
Yeah.
If you try to act all these ways that we're talking about, it doesn't work. You have to actually be that way.
Yeah. And it's so interesting how we can, the true us, I've noticed for myself, is the true me comes out in my really close relationships. Like with my friends and stuff, I'm great. And like, I feel so loving and I can really be there and hold space. But when it comes to my kids, even my beautiful mom, I get triggered. Like, and then like, there I am. That's the real me, is that like, if I feel anger that comes up just because my mom might have said something to me the wrong way, well, that's who I really am. And maybe doesn't it come out when I'm with my friends? Like, why don't I get triggered with them? And I only get triggered with these close relationships.
Because just because those relationships are so close, they've developed all those triggers. You know,
Yeah.
they go back, those triggers run deep. You know, you don't develop those triggers because you see somebody for an hour or two every other day. You know, you develop those triggers when you live with somebody for years, you know, and they know you at a deep level, you know them at a deep level, and you've kind of run into your ego conflicts with each other, and you hold some grudges, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of water under the bridge. That's when you have those triggers. And the thing to do is, when you feel that, when mom says something and you kind of feel like, you know, oh, I wish she wouldn't say things like that. Why does she have to say those things? Just tell yourself, just relax, let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah.
It's okay. She's just expressing her.
Yeah.
Don't get it, you know, don't react with ego. Don't react hurt. Don't react defensive. Don't react in that negative way. Just let it go by and see if you can't see it from her perspective. Why does she say those things? Why would she say them? Okay, and if you just say, well, because obviously she's an awful person. No, that's not right. So you got to go back and say, well, what's she feeling? You know, what are her feelings? What's driving her? And usually if you do that, you'll find out that other person who's saying those things that trigger you isn't really such an evil, terrible person. They're saying those things because they think that it's somehow helpful. And by them telling you that, it's going to help you straighten out and do better. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that's what they think. You know, they're trying to be helpful to you, and you resent that because you don't want to be doing what it is they want you to do. And you see, it's again, now it's, I know what's best for you. You see, I'm your mother and I know what's best for you. So I'm going to tell you how to live your life because I'm older than you are and you're my child. And, you know, mothers always tell their children what to do and when to do it. So you have, you know, you have that model kind of build up in her head and your head. She's my mom. She's always trying to tell me what to do and how to live my life.
Right.
Well, people need to let other people live their own life.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you can say, well, mom will just never quit trying to tell me how to run my life because she's a mom and that's just the way she feels. In her mind, she's trying to be helpful. Well, thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
I'll take it under consideration, you know?
Exactly. Love her anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah, that makes sense about there's so much history there. There's so many triggers that have been built over time. So
Yeah. It takes time to develop those triggers. And
yeah.
not only that, but the people in a social situation like you and your friends try very hard to avoid any triggers. If they say something and it starts to get you upset or you get defensive or something, well, they just will leave that alone. They're not going to push on it. Whereas if it's your family or your children or something like that, you feel obligated to tell them the way they need to be and how they need to do it better. You see, so you don't just say, well, I'll leave that alone. You feel an obligation to keep poking at them, to get them to do it your way, and they keep resenting it, and eventually that builds up a trigger to where all they have to do is just barely mention it, you know, and you immediately, you know, kind of trigger a defensive reaction to it.
It's so interesting because my mom is like, she's just such a good person, and she actually is just tries to be as helpful and quiet as possible, but I get triggered with her so easily, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? But my dad, on the other hand, he's like big ego, and last time I saw him, he's like, so you really messed that up, hey, with your relationship. We knew you were going to screw that up. And but the thing is, with him, I didn't get triggered. I was like, I just know how he is. I'm like, yeah, that's how he is. But there was no trigger. It's weird. Yeah, different things trigger different people, I guess.
Well, that's because you accept that he is the way he is.
Yeah.
You still want a relationship with your mom that's different than the one you've got.
Oh, yeah, good, Tom. It's true. That is what, yeah.
See?
Yeah,
So his, it is what it is, and you accept that. But you don't accept that with your mom. With your mom, you don't say, well, she is the way she is, and you accept that. No, you don't accept that because you still want something else other than that.
Now you're bringing up my mommy issues. I thought it was just daddy issues. I got mommy issues too. Man. But it's so true. And once I come to accept myself more, I'll be able to accept her more, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Once you're okay with you, once you get to the point of letting go of fear, then you'll have no problem with her because you'll just see her as somebody who loves you, who's trying to do what she thinks is best.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is. So even when people are butting into your life, you know, most of the time, if it's your family, it's because they're trying to do what they think is best.
Yeah.
And it's their own ego. You know, in their minds, they know what's best for you and you don't. And they just can't help themselves but try to fix you and try to help you see it the right way, you see. Whereas in your mind, you know what's best for you and you want it to do it your own way because you have to do it your own way. Otherwise, it's fake. It's not yours. It's not real. You have to be yourself. And yourself conflicts for what their vision of you is, you see. So you see it from both sides. The parent needs to be able to see that the child needs to be themselves. They need to do it in their own way. They need to make their own mistakes. They need to learn from the consequences of their choices. And you just have to let them do that. You can't run their life forever. You can run their life up until they're 16, 17, 18, and then you got to let them run their own life with maybe a little guidance as asked, but you can't push too hard on it. But a lot of parents can't quit. They feel the need to help fix, their wayward children. And they, with their more experience and whatever else, their own beliefs and their own ego, they just can't let it go. They can't let you be you. They have to constantly try to fix you. And you will resent that because you have to be yourself. You see, and that's just the way it is. So, and then children look at their parents and want their parents to leave them alone and stop trying to run their life, you see, and they have a hard time just accepting their parents. That's just the way their parents are. Their parents have to live their own life. And one of the ways the parents live their own life is by telling you how it is you ought to run your life.
Yeah.
So you just accept that, and it's okay. You still have to run your own life and make your own choices. You're going to do that anyway. But take their advice, say, okay, this is what they advise, and where are they coming from? Try to see their point of view and get their point of view and say, yeah, okay, I see that. I understand where they're coming from, but I need to do it this other way. Well, you have to do what you have to do in your own way. It's your free will. You can't let mom take over your free will and tell you how to run your life.
Right. Yeah,
But mom just can't let go of trying to do that, because that's what moms do. They tell their children how to live their lives, right?
Right. Okay. So it's mostly around duality, and who we are at our core is awareness, someone with the capacity to love, right? That's who we are at our core. So then oftentimes when people have these kind of near-death experiences, they connect with that conscious awareness and they're overwhelmed by the love, how amazing it feels, because now they're stripped of their fears and, the little picture that they've been playing. And so oftentimes people have this longing to go back there. I want to go home. I want to be back there. And it feels like they're like so confined and so stuck here. And they're like, oh, get me out of this friggin' place. I want to go back there. What do you have to say to that?
Well, to go back there, and you can go back there, but it's not by going there. You go back there by changing who you are and making that your reality. That your reality is like that. You have to create that through your own choices. The thing is, they get there in this near-death experience, or sometimes not a near-death experience. Sometimes just meditation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people, they just get in a meditation state and they connect with the larger consciousness system. And when they make that connection, suddenly their identity disappears. They become one with everything. They are the leaf on the tree, they're everything, they're the grass, they're the water, they're the clouds. They just feel connected to all existence, and it's all love and it's all beautiful, and there's no fear. It's just is, and it's magnificent. So they have this basking in love and connectedness. And yeah, it doesn't have to be near death, but matter of fact, more times that I've known people, they do that just out of a meditation state. Yeah. And anybody can experience that. That's not something that is that hard to experience. You just get into a good meditation state and have the intent to understand the nature of reality, to understand and experience the larger consciousness system. And if you have that as an intent, then there's a pretty good chance that you'll have this experience. Well, when people have it, it's often life-changing. It's often one of those things that it's even hard to talk about, for a day or two. It's a very profound experience, but you've just been given a look at it. You haven't earned it.
Oh, okay.
You see?
Yeah.
It's like if you're a poor kid and you get, ushered into this very swanky hotel and taken up to the such and such suite, and you say, wow, I keep thinking I just need to live there. I just need to be there. Well, you've seen what it can be like, but you have to earn that. Well, it's probably not a good example because that's about money, but it's the same thing. You have to earn this in terms of growing up.
Yeah.
And if you do get rid of your fear, then that's where you'll be. If you get rid of all of your fear, which means your ego and belief are gone, that's the place you will live in. You will be connected to the whole. You will be part of the big picture. You will see reality from a much bigger viewpoint, a much bigger, a much bigger picture than you do now. So you can live in that space, but you have to earn it. It's not something you're just going to get? Well, you get put in that just to let you see what the possibilities are, just to let you see, here's where you could go if you work for it, if you do it, if you become it. This is what your life will be like. This is what your experience will be like. You'll be connected to everything. You'll have compassion and caring and love for everything and everybody. You will feel that connectedness. So
Right.
that's a possibility, but you have to earn it.
Right.
Well, sometimes people will work better toward a goal if they actually see what the endpoint feels like and looks like. So the system lets people see what that endpoint feels like and looks like. But that's where you're headed, to that sort of a life, that sort of an existence, to where you can be that, and at the same time carry on a conversation, drive a car or do something here. You don't have to be lying on a bed in a in a meditation state to do it. You can live your life like that, so you're there and here both, and those two integrate into just one reality. So
that's how you live your life, right? That's how you live.
well, my life has gone more and more in that direction, and hopefully as I keep growing up, it'll go even more in that direction. Yes, I'm saying this out of experience, not out of theory.
Right.
And that if you live like that, your reality gets bigger. Everything, you start dealing in information that is not only normal but paranormal at the same time. You understand people at different levels, just because the information's there, and it just live in a bigger reality. So you integrate it. Now, when you have that experience, you just kind of go and experience it. But it's different when you grow into it. It's not like you just float there, one with everything, and nothing else happens. It's not just the experience of that. That's just the core feeling and idea. But you can also function in a life while you live in that space. So it's not just a space to to float in. It's a space, and not just a space to experience, but it's a space in which to be.
Right.
You live in that space, and that's really where we're all headed.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. That's awesome, because that's what so like I've been saying, I've been doing this meditation every morning, and I'm leading a group through this group program that we're doing over 6 weeks, where every morning we meditate and we anchor ourselves in that space and become familiar with that space, so that throughout the day we bring ourselves back to that space, so that we can be operating our lives from that place of love and big picture and compassion for all. And it's so much easier to live from there when you're not riddled by fears and making it about yourself, right?
And it is. And it's not only easier in the sense that you're not struggling anymore. Yes, you live in that space. And as you live in that space, the decisions and choices you make will be such that all of your relationships will start to get more productive.
Right.
Your ability to pick the right guy instead of the wrong guy, starts to develop. Everything starts to pull together, and your life starts to just become happy, just joyful, because everything works right, because you're making good choices. The reason you're making good choices is because the fear's gone. When you're in that space, there's no fear. That's a space where you just are, and it's not a fearful space at all, and it's not a about me space. It's not a self-centered space. It's a completely open and other space.
It's so interesting, because it's such a different approach than I've ever used. I've always had, the fear's there, now I got to get rid of it, and then I battle my way through. But now, ever since I'm familiar with this space, it's just about being in that space, and then the fear disappears. It's not about trying to get rid of it anymore. It's just coming back home or being back in that space, your authentic self. It's so much easier.
Yeah, sometimes when we try to get rid of something, it just makes us focus on it more.
Right. Yeah. It keeps it in place, because then you're fighting against it, which actualizes it to be there. But if you just let it go, then you're not keeping it in place anymore, and you're not focusing on it anymore. Yeah, it's been a huge awakening.
Yeah, well, that's different ways of looking at things. In the yogic tradition, they tend to be fighters. You know, they go after their fear and they wrestle their fear to the ground and get rid of it
Hmm.
just by having a very strong intention to do so. That's kind of the yogic tradition. If you go to the, maybe the tantric tradition, you'll find that their fundamental idea isn't to, uh, fight your fears, but to surrender. Surrender to everything. You just
Hmm.
surrender. And in the act of surrendering, you don't have to fight the fears. You know, the fears go away because you're no longer acting on them. You've surrendered. You're not upset or bothered. You surrender to everything. You know, so it's just two different approaches, and it
Right.
depends on your personality as to which one of these approaches works better for you.
Yeah.
Some people have to fight their fears to get rid of them. If they don't struggle with them, they can't get rid of them. And others, the fighting just makes them focus on them all the more.
Yeah.
And it's counterproductive. They just need to let go, just
Yeah.
simply let go of them. And that
Yeah.
works easier for those. But some people, you say, well, you got fear, just let go of it. And they kind of look at you like, yeah, that's not helpful. Telling me just to let go of it, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
But that's what you're doing. You're just letting go of it is the process you're talking about.
Yeah. After finally like, giving up, basically, like from trying years and years of fighting it, and then finally kind of hitting rock bottom and being like, this is not working. Like something's got to give. And then, like I said, then I did the Vipassana and I came home and I was like, oh, this is so much easier just surrendering to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I don't want to keep you too long, Tom. So I just wanted to do a little shameless self-promotion before we wrap this up. Um, so as I was talking about, now that I'm experiencing this, I want to share it with as many people as possible. And so I've created a 6-week online program where it helps people to break through these self-limiting beliefs and to start actualizing their full potential. And so I've got a website, and I'm already guiding people through the program. I'll be running 5 more programs throughout the year. And so as part of this, I've entered a challenge, and it's called the Landing Page Challenge. I've created a landing page, and on that landing page, it has an option to enter your email address and your name.
More sound issues, so don't mind this quick edit. The way the challenge works is whoever creates the most creative landing page and receives the most amount of email registrations through the landing page, they win the challenge. This is put on by ConvertKit. So ConvertKit will give the winner of the challenge $10,000 as the grand prize. And so I'm hoping that we can win this together and that you can enter your information in the landing page and we can win the $10,000. With the $10,000, we will donate half of it to Cusack and half of it to Low Entropy. So Low Entropy is a registered charity that is making personal growth available to everyone, giving them the tools to change themselves and the world. And then Cusack is also a charity. This is Tom's 501c3. It's the Center of Unification for Science and Consciousness. So please help to contribute to this.
Everybody who's watching can contribute to that by simply clicking on the link that will be in the comments of this YouTube video, and that'll take you to the landing page where you're in, and you can contribute to this amazing cause.
So Vanessa, what is your website? Tell us, say what your website address is.
Yeah, so the website address is just my name. So it's vanessawideski.com. And it's a work in progress.
You better spell Wideski. Everybody might not be able to negotiate that curve.
It's phonetically it's Wideski, so it's WIDESKI. So that's how you Wideski.com. Yeah.
Last edit, I promise. So the MBT Volunteer Project is a group of volunteers from around the world who have come together to make MBT more accessible to the general public. It's a really big project that we're working on to bring all of Tom's work and make it easy to access.
To help people navigate MBT, because it's big, Tom. It's a theory of everything, and it's it can be hard to navigate alone.
Yeah, it is. So anybody out there who would like to help work those problems, help make all of those thousands of videos I have out there more friendly, more user friendly. In other words, a searching database where you can put in a topic. Oh, I'm going to know about this, and then it'll give you all the various places and all the various videos where that is discussed. So it lets you find what it is you want without having to sort through thousands of hours of video. So if that's something you'd like and you'd like to help, they'll get in touch with Vanessa. She's got the group that's trying to turn that into a reality.
Yeah, definitely reach out to me. Again, if you put your info in the landing page, then I'll have your email and I'll be able to, I'll reach out with that. The group that's put together, we have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, everyone's very helpful and conscious. So it's a good group to be around. Because as Tom says, we're all connected, right? And so if you surround yourselves with people of high quality of consciousness, that kind of lifts you up too.
It does. That's very important. People should try to seek out people who are, evolved at least to the level that they are themselves. That's good, because particularly if you're learning and you're growing, that'll help a lot. If you're constantly being drugged down, by other people that you interact with that have not grown up very much and they're still very self-centered, and you find that makes it harder for you to grow up. Well, you can grow up in spite of that, but it does make it a little harder for you to grow up. You have to deal with that kind of thing all the time. Then try to find some people that are more, what can I say, that you feel better with, that you feel calm with, that you feel at peace with, that you feel like you can just be yourself and say whatever you think, and that's okay. Yeah. Try to search for that. And if you can't find that, well, you can start hanging out with Vanessa or hanging out with other MBT groups, and come to the MBT forum, or go to the fireside chats or those sorts of things, and join up, and you'll find like-minded people who are also on this path of trying to grow up. So that's helpful to hang out with other people who are also trying to grow up.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be face to face. I mean, like even this conversation with you, Tom, we're miles and miles away, but I feel a little bit more grown up now. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tom. You've been a huge influence in my life, a positive role model, such a great mentor. I attribute a lot of my success to your wisdom. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome, Vanessa, but realize that all I can give you is structure, and all of the gains you've made. I don't make them for you. You've done all of them, all the growth that you've done. And look back at the Vanessa of even 5 years ago, the first time we met at a TMI,
the Monroe Institute.
Yeah, a TMI program. Well, it wasn't a TMI program. It was an MBT program at TMI. And till now, you see, there's a lot of water's gone under that bridge in that amount of time, and you've grown up a lot. Yeah. You're a very different person than you were then. A very different person, and that's not me. That's you. That's you. You've made all those choices, and you've created that growth. If I've been any help, it's just because I show you maybe some possibilities.
Yeah, you've been a huge help, and you're right. It does come back to the individual and having that intent, right? Having that intent to want to grow, to want to.
Yes. Yeah. If you've got that intent, it'll eventually work out, and you'll get there. That's the key thing. You just have to want to grow up, want to get rid of fear, want to get rid of ego and belief. And if you have that, you will. If it's a real being level intent. If it's an intellectual intent, then nothing much will happen. It has to be a core being level intent.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm thankful that I had that, because it brought me to this journey. This path unfolded where I was able to meet you and Pamela and all the amazing community of MBT. And my life has radically transformed ever since I first came across your teachings. So again, thank you. And thank you for bringing your message to this community so that others can also benefit from it.
Okay, well, I'm going to see you in May, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
We could mention that.
Mention that. So May, Tom is coming to Vancouver, BC, Canada, to give a one-day talk on May 16th. So that's a Saturday. And in the description of this YouTube, we'll also have the link there where you can purchase tickets, which I believe are $199 now. So $199 for the full day talk. And Tom will answer questions from the audience, as well as experiment with some paranormal things, such as remote viewing and telepathic communication, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll have a great time, like we always do.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me here to chat with you. It's always fun to have a conversation with Vanessa.
Aw, appreciate that, Tom.